Okay, so another audience to convince, why should I spend the next 20, 15 minutes listening to IBM? Okay, so Vani team, thank you. This is very exciting. When I did the Thai conference, which Vani invited me to, that was my first actually addressing a pure startup ecosystem. And not unusual, because we are known to be an enterprise company and have a 105-year rich legacy of doing that. Different world, different place, and our innovations are also at a different stage. So something that when you build a company, and many of you are building a company, I'll start with the very first thing. You build a company in today's world, whether you're 105 years old or whether you're 5 months old, you have to constantly think about innovation, invention, reinvention. Because the world we live in, and you guys are born digital, almost all of you, this is a world of constant innovation, which also means constant disruption, which then says, I've got to make the disruption work for me, and rather than being the disrupted. And you know what? There will be times where you have to disrupt yourself. That is another lesson that we are probably doing it at the largest scale in the world. So a company, 105 years old, $100 million of revenue. Last year, we were 87 because we divested $8 billion of revenue, growing revenue, in the last 2 years. And much more so if you go back and look. Why? Because those are businesses that were not going to go where we needed to go in terms of a company based on innovation. So lesson number one, don't wait to be disrupted. Look at disrupting yourself and constantly innovating. Otherwise, there is someone that's always going to do that. But in doing that, don't let someone else decide the rules for you. You're going to define the rules, and that'll go back to really deciding who you are. I'm going to go, I'm not going to read the statistics on this page because all of you know it and we read it every day. But what this means is there's something happening which is going to influence how companies work. We are an enterprise company. We divested our PC business 11 years ago because we saw the influence of consumer electronics shaping PCs. Right? And we said that is where that's going to go. So while we're still growing and very profitable, this is the time to divest it and let it go where, somebody who's focused in that space. But when you look at today, for those of you that are saying, I am a consumer retail startup. Why should I care about IBM? I'm in a space which is very different. Same reason why IBM cares about and why my chairman was at the Consumer Electronics Show 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Because the worlds are converging. Two things. One, everybody in enterprise today wants a very consumable experience. So we have to make everything we make, no matter how complicated it is, simplify it and make it consumable. So our partnership with Apple was really taking enterprise-grade, enterprise-quality security applications, back-end integration, but redefining it for the world we live in so that it becomes very consumable, and not just make it a quote-unquote a mobile app, but make it in a way that absolutely redoes the way a person works or lives so that it actually adds value in the process. So that's the partnership. And we have our Apple Garage right here in Bangalore that does work for an interactive design studio. So we're the largest digital design company in the world. We made two acquisitions last week, one in Germany, one in the US. Right? Why do we do that? So that we can make all of IBM's products and services and our partners more consumable, because design has become integral. And in any experience today, your last best experience defines your expectation for the next one. And it doesn't matter which industry it came in. Right? Second reason, why should consumer companies care about enterprise capabilities? Because you can get so far, and then you will hit a wall if you haven't thought about things like scalability, reliability, security, privacy, a whole variety of things that do become important. Because in the consumer world today, I no longer want to go search for things. And we're going to talk about cognitive. I want the world to find me. And if I'm going to give the world information about me, you have extensive privacy concerns in places like Europe, and you have extensive security concerns in places like the US, which means you've got to say, I'm going to take your most personal information, make the product and service I deliver to you extremely consumable, but I also have your security and your privacy in mind. And that is something that cannot be an afterthought, that has got to be part of your design principle in how you design. Because even if you don't have the customer demanding it or a country demanding it today, sooner or later it will. And by the way, it only takes one really bad accident, right? A cyber or a digital accident to completely demolish the value that you have painstakingly built through a lot of hard work. So design principles of industrial grade, not industrial era, industrial grade set of abilities that go into consumer, and consumer grade consumability and ease and design into enterprise. This cross-section has, this is not a trend. Any of us can put brakes and stop. Worlds are forever converged and will continue to. So everybody's experience and expectation will be the best I can get from both places. So when we look at what we are doing, this is then our entry into building consumable. The other thing about ecosystems. So this week, my chairman was here. We've had 4 busy days, and I characterize it as 3 Indian weddings in a week that I had to plan for. And so today is the last day, so I am a little exhausted after. And Vani and I had committed to this quite a while ago. But we've met everyone, regulators, enterprise clients. We did a startup event with Watson 2 days ago. And one of the things that we're asking enterprises, and we're saying, hey, we'll build platforms. We as IBM will build platforms. We'll build platforms that are open, scalable, multifunction, and will have APIs. Why are we building platforms? Because, again, the world we live in, we're going to add capability every day, every week, every month. So you don't have time for release cycles. But not in the way of it can break, not in an open source world without accountability, but open and agile, but with all of the responsibility of delivering something that sustains and that you can then build your business on. So that's the importance of the ecosystem, because we don't expect to build all the applications that are out there. We don't expect to be having the, if you will, the corner on innovation. We expect that that innovation is going to be very local, is going to be very specific to a use case, to an industry, to a client. And that's something you will do, but we will hopefully give you all the capabilities and do the heavy lifting on the platforms, whether it's the development platform or whether it's the innovation platform that you leverage, and it'll have a million different avatars as it goes across the world. So hence the ecosystem. And I say integrated ecosystem because we will all live in different ecosystems. You will sometimes, I hope, live in our ecosystem. We will live in other ecosystems. And by the way, the Watson event we did and some of the other things that we've done with NASCOM and Ravi Gururaj and company and others, the world of competitors and partners are also constantly blurring because you're adding value to each other. You're taking things from each other. You're taking some capability and then you're making it something unique. So there are very few hard lines anymore in terms of industries. Industries are blurring. Right? This week I spent time with telecom companies who are trying to become a payment bank. I spent times with banks who are thinking about payments, right? And so when you start to think, that's the other reason why we as a company are, if you will, packaging all of our innovation differently, because again, we have 105 years of industry experience. So we know that things have to be done in context, especially as you get into the world of analytics and you start to differentiate, because people will differentiate. So now let me sort of go to Watson, the era of cognitive. Today, no one is debating whether the world is digital. You're either already are born digital, you become digital, or you're transitioning to digital. That debate ended years ago. So in a world when everybody is digital, how are you going to differentiate yourself? That's table stakes. That's the platform. That's the foundation. So mobile, cloud, analytics, all of the basic capabilities, you put that in, that's table stakes. So what is it that you're going to do that's going to make you special, that's going to continue to get value to your company and to your stakeholders? That is where we believe the world is moving to cognitive. Digital platforms combined with digital intelligence is a cognitive world. So I'll spend just a minute on cognitive. 80% of the world's data is dark data. Images, voice, sounds, right? All kinds of data that we can't program, we can't organize in a way. We cannot write programs fast enough to ask the questions which will give us the answers, because in many cases, the data has patterns that we don't see, and patterns we don't recognize. We've invested in a cognitive platform called Watson for the last 10 years. 5 years ago, we launched Watson in a game show called Jeopardy in the US. At that point, Watson had one visible technology, question and answer, and Jeopardy is a fairly complex game. You can look at Watson on YouTube playing Jeopardy, and Watson won. It had 5 underlying technologies. Today, Watson has 35 new capabilities, APIs, 50 underlying technologies. So we're not doing something, and there are different types of AI, because people say cognitive AI, yes, it is AI, but it's a lot more. So it's not about just search. It's not just about, it's not just about driving. It's not just about a specific context. It's a set of capabilities that you then pull into your industry, your application, your value creation. So something like, personalities. Any one of you identifying person, all it needs is some social fingerprints of yours or your consumers, either on Twitter or Facebook, anywhere, to assess your personality. So imagine if you knew my personality and Vanitha doesn't like to shop, Vanitha doesn't like, so you're immediately a stereotypical woman like shopping. No, I don't. So you know what I like, and then you know how to serve something up to me in a way that actually aligns to my personality. And that can be done just with a handful. So when you look at the different APIs, facial recognition, if you're in a high-end, curated environment where you want to, give a person very, very customized service, or if you're building a cybersecurity app for an airport, you can use it in very, very different ways. So which is why a lot of the acquisitions, we just finished our acquisition of the weather company last week. The weather company has the most weather data of any company in the world. 80% of the world's GDP in some ways influenced by weather. We bought the weather company not just for the weather data, because it's one of the biggest, the most scalable IoT platforms in the world. Because the 4th most used app in the world is the weather app. So what it does is, it then allows people to then take that, so it can be in any world. So for a company that probably specialized on proprietary, and probably invented proprietary, it's a world of open, curated capabilities, and all of the Watson capabilities doesn't ship in a big box or a blue box. It's capabilities, APIs that exist out there. And each of you will find different ways. In fact, we saw some examples, some wonderful examples, people around the world that have built small startups. Small startups. So focus is, do we expect everyone? Now we're working on healthcare, on finding better outcomes for cancer. So not to use a pun, we're not expecting everybody to go out there and cure cancer. That kind of heavy lifting, a few will do, we will invest, and we'll build a platform keep. However, we expect there will be a financial ecosystem of established financial players, banks and other financial institutions, and a set of fintechs. There will be a healthcare ecosystem of hospitals, medical providers. So one of the companies using a Watson API is Medtronic. Right? So why? Because now you have a cognitive engine that can process the data for diabetes, and where it can give you an alert 3 hours before an attack, which is unknown. So not just tell you you're in the danger zone, right? But gives you a headlights 3 hours. So if you're making devices, so find a way. So very simply, our view of cognitive and our positioning of Watson is, in a world of data, We will not be able to keep up with it. 80% of it is dark. And for you to make your products and services, enterprise or consumer, unique, you're going to have to get to those insights. So if you want to get real-time insights and real-time expertise and scale it at the point of interaction, you need cognitive technologies. Today, that's where we are at the forefront, and we are investing, and we'll continue to and put it out there. So that's the thought process, if you will. As you look at platforms, as you look at capabilities, as you look at, think of the abilities, reliability, security, all of the different abilities, and then look at differentiation, constant differentiation, disruption, reinvention, and how do you build so that you can take this forward. So as a company, we are cannibalizing some of our own businesses clearly so that we can build these capabilities and put it out in portfolio. In fact, the launch, before we took this to our enterprise clients in India, on Tuesday we had events here for the ecosystem, including some of our largest services competitors. Because the expectation is each one of us will innovate in different ways. So that's the other thing I think each of you, if you haven't already thought about in your business plan, think about intersections, think about ecosystems. Every rupee you generate, or every 100 rupees you generate, may not come directly to you. There will be some 100 rupees you generate where all 100 rupees come to you. But increasingly in the world we live in, if you can find 10 different ways for you to monetize, where in some cases it's a fully your product or service and you get the 100 rupees, and in some cases you're only getting 10 rupees of that 100 rupees or 5 rupees of that 100 rupees, but you've got a lot more of the ecosystem generating value with some of the core capabilities that you've built, that's where you start to scale. You start to scale beyond your organizational capability or focus. And that's really where we are embracing that world. That's part of the world we live in, and I expect that that will be part of your world as you start to grow and scale. So this is all the different areas today that we have some cognitive capability with about 70,000 developers around the world, or ISVs, and about 500 different partners, and particularly in India, where we have aspirations of building a knowledge economy. Not just a digital economy, because as I said, digital will give us the foundation. But then if you want to go to a knowledge, value-creating economy, you got to think what's beyond digital. That's the reason why we're sort of investing heavily, particularly in India, with the 5 million developers that we have here and all of the startup ecosystems, third hottest, and with people like Vani and others, and Kalari, it'll start to get second very quickly, right? But still a lot of distance to bridge to truly be value creating and driving ecosystems as opposed to participating in ecosystems. And that's where the objective should be. So here's something that we just very recently said, first had the discussion back in November, and then said, how can we start to scale? In fact, I had just a session with some of the Kalari companies a little earlier, and said, you know what, a lot of the things you've told me or told us today, we've never heard, we didn't realize. So part of it is we've got to reintroduce ourselves, right? Because people know IBM. The good news is people know IBM, and good news is people know IBM in a way that is not the IBM of today. So what is the transforming, reinvented IBM and the IBM and the capabilities? Not because I want, you're doing me a favor, but because we think we can differentiate your business and give you capabilities that you may not be able to get to yourself or anywhere else, frankly, in the world, right? So the work that we're doing with Kalari, and specifically K-Start, is how do we work with a curated set of companies. One, it's about building the awareness, because that's on us. We've got to keep getting you the information. Why do you care? If any of you is doing medical work or part of a healthcare ecosystem, we acquired a company called Merge a few months ago that has 30 billion X-rays, so we could help Watson see. So Watson can see and can understand images, and make something of it. So in a world of video and a world of images, you need to start having things that can actually see and make sense of it. So this could be an API capability that you leverage. So it's the different, and the context might be very different, and it should be different, because that's your unique. So awareness, That's on us, for us to keep. Cultivating, then how do we build a set of capabilities? Because you care about, consumer personality insights, and you care about, I'm doing a tech support for a particular area or in a particular field, and this is what makes sense. Oh, by the way, I'm doing some work in a medical field, and I have, I'm part of a healthcare pharma ecosystem. So we will continue to work on that piece and cultivate each area, and then, specific problem solving. So we're going to start, we believe, here in India particularly, a very, very differentiated value system, value equation, because if we just look at that first instance of launch, because of the hyperactivity, all of the stats that we see every day, the hyperactivity and the hyper-innovation and the interest in entrepreneurialism, all very, very good, will very quickly start to blur the innovations. So for each of you to continue to differentiate, think that next step on scaling and differentiation. And both of those then get you not just a local, but a global, and then many, many different ways actually create brand new ecosystems that we could never have conceived of. Other people sitting in different offices wouldn't have conceived of. So that's really sort of, my very, very brief. I think we have an app. How do we get this app that we created? Okay, that's the app. All right. So in the last couple of weeks, the team has been creating an app that helps K-Start and the program here actually engage with us easier. So this is something where you can go ask a question, and I don't think we have Watson behind it yet, but over time we will put Watson behind it. So the answers you get are answers that actually make sense to you. In fact, earlier this week we had Watson in a robot that has been built by SoftBank called Pepper. And they're in about 200 banks doing retail function. Right? So the thing about the cognitive system is it's constantly learning. So the only system, an IT system, that'll be worth more 5 years from now than it was on the day you bought it. And a lot of it will come from the insights and the ingesting. So we will have a lot of value that we put in terms of data and other things, but the APIs are how you'll leverage it to create your own unique. So this is something to make it a little bit easier, because one of the feedback I've got is, when we hear IBM, we say, oh my God, it's intimidating, it's a behemoth, and how do we deal with you? And all fair observations. So it's about how do we make IBM consumable and consumer friendly. So that's on us. So wish you all the best. Thank you all for having me here this afternoon. I think it's a start. We are very, very excited about working with Kalari on K-Start. And I have a very senior leader in Nipun, because I didn't want it. Nipun is probably one of the first dozen employees of IBM India. And the reason we had Nipun is because he knows everybody that works in IBM India. So we wanted someone that would engage, that could pull the different pieces together quickly and not be in a sort of a particular unit that is bound in any way. So we're very serious about this. We're committed to it. We've started with a whole series of actions, and I will have an entire team. So reach out, explore. Wish you all much success. And when the whole world thinks, you add value by outthinking it. Good luck.